Phil isn't here. Pauline, would you like to take us through that?
Yep, so first off we have the Christchurch Energy Action Plan. Because we already have a sustainable energy strategy 2008 to 18, we agreed that we didn't require a review of that, and we would just work on implementing the 6 program areas. But the committee recommendation is also requests that staff work with an informal group of the committee to develop these key actions to implement the strategy. This is a really, really good program. We've already, with these 6 areas, there's a lot of it already happening with the internal energy management program. We've got ECA on board with that to measure and manage our internal energy. With our commercial energy efficiency, we've got target sustainability, which is helping many, many businesses and commercial buildings to actually save a lot of money every year on their energy programs. We've got the Build Back Smarter program for the residential. We've got our transport energy efficiency renewable energy program supporting our move to electric vehicles. For our Christchurch energy measuring program, we're looking at data portals, which sound impressive. I'm not sure how they work, but to use public communication and promotional portal to develop this to publicise the types and quantities of energy use in Christchurch and how this relates to carbon emissions. So that's really exciting too. And then we've got our energy efficient renewable energy Christchurch tourism program, which is actually going to look at attracting tourism to look at how we are running our energy in our cities, reducing our emissions, and setting ourselves up as a bit of a leader in this area, which is actually what we've been asked to do and to share an idea, in my view. So that's a bit of a rundown on that. And did you want to move these recommendations separately?
Yes, please. On? So if you could move.
I'll move that.
Well, it's the committee recommendation. So
it's just got their little bit added on the end for the.
That's right. Part. So Pauline Cotter moved, seconded by Vicky Buck.
Can I just explain that the concept of working with the working group of the infrastructure committee was so that we could actually put some timelines on these, because the concepts are there, but the actual date by which they will be implemented is not quite so clear. So an action plan that actually follows on from these big concepts. Some of the very simple ones, for example, Te Hapua, the Horsewell Centre, has actually been built without solar panels, but we are now looking at putting the solar panels in after. But it would be sensible in new builds to look at them going in, and there is a company in town that will put them in at no cost, do the capital cost, and you contract for your electricity for a period of time. Where we're actually paying for the electricity, because you're paying a reduced amount, it makes sense for us to put solar panels on the new builds. But just what we wanted to do was to make sure that we had clear timelines and that we were achieving them on the whole plan.
All right, I'll put that motion. Yep. Yep.
I just had a question because we're just signing this off now to the bottom of page 36, or approving this to the bottom of page 36. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is. Because in the recommendation it says, agree that a full review of the sustainable energy strategy is not required
this year.
So it will be done in the next annual plan period, is that right? Or
Well, we've got a sustainable energy strategy 2008 to 18, so that's the 10-year period.
Clearly we've had earthquakes and the whole environment has changed immensely. Has that, or does that not need to be addressed?
Well, I thought that was the point that they were making, is that it's a perfectly good plan. It still is. I mean, I don't need to answer the question for others.
That's fine. I'll raise it another
But they
time.
want to develop key actions to implement the strategy for presentation to the next committee meeting.
But under the residential, which is in the next bit, I have some questions around the lack of support and
perhaps Kevin could answer that, Leanne.
Okay.
Yes, just to follow on from that, the strategy still has those key objectives that were all I think, as council wanting to facilitate and look at. So the action, so it was considered by staff. It's quite a costly exercise to do a strategy. We've already got one there. The two key objectives still stand. So the action plan is actually to get out there and do something based under those strategy objectives.
So sorry, and my question is then, because those strategies I'm assuming are an increase in the share of renewable energy, is that right? Am I correct in the two?
That's correct.
And the next one is reduction in total energy used?
That's correct.
So my question is, with thousands and thousands of houses being rebuilt in Christchurch, and I know we've got Build Back Smarter, but I'm talking from personal experience as well, I would strongly suggest that there isn't enough focus on solar and sustainability in new builds, and would that need to be addressed in the strategy as a result of the earthquakes, and this doesn't quite cut it?
So, Ellie, actually, that's what we've tried to address in the district plan review, where we've tried to raise the build for residential to Homestar 6. I don't know that we're going to win this.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the Homestar 6. I'm talking about ratepayers and residents in Christchurch being able to access not only information but sources of, for example, solar.
Right.
Because to be perfectly frank, there's bugger all around.
And making that much more accessible.
Absolutely, and making that a really key important part of the strategy that needs to be addressed, in my opinion, because of the situation we find ourselves in after the earthquakes.
Why don't we just add that to the target?
And I'm sorry if this is problematic at this late stage, but
the question would be to Kevin, is that in here somewhere that...
Yes, I think the intention is definitely look at renewable energy where it's practical.
Yeah.
The good news is we've got a representative from ECA here. We've talked to ECA about this residential area and solar power. And from my understanding, they're launching a new tool next year to help consumers better make that decision on the top 10 things to look at in their residential build, including solar.
But does it facilitate, or is it just more information?
That's got to be our job, facilitating it.
Right, so that's why I think it's got to be a part of our strategy.
That's why we've got to have a strategy that says, here's what we're actually doing and when we're doing it by.
And do we have that?
Well,
That's
we've got
what
a
the
strategy.
key actions.
What we haven't got is the action plan that says this. So what
Right,
you're
I
thinking
just
about...
don't see, I see a disconnection between continuing with a policy that was, drafted 2008 to 2018 or whatever. Anyway,
So the working group will address that, because it's actually in the strategy, the renewable energy angle there, and so we can bring that into the action
and
plan.
Ali's point is that if you're rebuilding your house or fixing your house, how do you know where all those things are? Where's the go-to place for all that information?
Mm-hmm.
And if ECA don't do it, then we'll have to.
Thank you.
Yanni?
Yeah, can I just ask on that? We've had two things that have happened. We had the Polytech, CPIT had a project around an eco-design advisor that was based on a kind of show home, and that I think fell over through lack of funding. And I think it's what Nelson City Council do, and it's apparently quite a good intervention. So it's independent people giving you advice rather than the companies that provide the products and services. And the second was we had the deputation to the CHED committee around that model, around that housing from the architects. And I know we can't get into all the details here, but where we talk about under 3, the energy efficient homes, there's no recognition of those other opportunities of existing things we could be doing. So is there a way we can kind of get those put into this process, and if so, how?
I'm feeling constrained because I'm actually using Bob Burnett to rebuild our house. So I don't want to comment on anything in relation to that. But in relation to the 10-star homes that were in Addington, there was a submission about how we actually make all that technology available to people. And certainly a lot of people have been through that. But if you want to add something to it, Yanni, just add it and we'll consider it at that working group, or come on the working group.
So we can just email through.
Yeah.
We don't need a formal resolution or anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ali, do you want to go on the working group as well?
I have a particular interest in residential, I have to say.
Yeah.
If that's...
Is that cool?
Great.
Yep.
Great.
Okay.
We'll have her.
Whatever. Hey, Pauline, whatever. I learned how to speak that language. Right, okay, so I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried. Electric vehicle car sharing. Pauline.
Right, so now this is another very interesting one. I think that this is looking at council really leading this one again. It also links back into the Christchurch Energy Action Plan with their objectives, of course. And it's really looking at part of the modal shift, as Christchurch currently has the highest rate of car ownership in New Zealand. So we're looking at a new mobility ecosystem. So this is obviously going to take a while to bring in. We have to look once again at gathering the data. And, you know, it's not actually intended to be as daily use, you know, right from the beginning, but it has actually grown in popularity over the last 10 years, but the restrictions are that there's still very few cities that have widespread networks of plug-in EV facilities. So a willing operator would need the assurance of this charging infrastructure, and that's why we've asked staff to request the staff to make this as easy as possible. So we're looking at this modal shift. We've obviously got the slow zone in the CBD, we've got cycleways programs developing really well, safe pedestrian mobility, working hard on our public transport, and so this is just another layer in getting our transport and energy systems going really well. So the public electric vehicle sharing program will support all the goals that we've already got in our own strategy with our Christchurch Energy Action Plan, and we want to encourage the uptake of electric vehicles by organisations and residents. This also links into the Christchurch Transport Strategic Plan, which has the goal to create opportunities for environmental enhancement and renewable transport innovations to support our low carbon emissions in Christchurch. So to me, I'm looking at option one as the preferred option, and I really do hope we support it, because going back to the sharing idea, it's what people wanted. They wanted a green city, they want a safe city, and we really got to look at reducing our carbon emissions globally. And we want Christchurch to be leading this, and this is our opportunity to really get in behind. So it is still in investigative stages. It still does need the data and the measurements to actually feed into this, but it's the beginning. So I urge you to support this.
Yep. Vicky?
These two, actually, this was quite an exciting ITI committee.
It was.
Because it was all about really cool stuff. So this one, item number 2, the electric vehicle car sharing, and the next item, the shared fleet options and proposal, are very linked.
Yeah.
And so what may well happen is that the part of the rationale for sharing our fleet is not just the saving of money, but also the electrification of the fleet, and you'll notice that as a note in the recommendations. It also means that we can share with other government agencies and potentially others as well. But what may come out of that is, in fact, part of that fleet being used, for example, at night, as part of the car sharing, the public car sharing as well. So my hunch is that the car sharing will probably be part of the shared fleet options and proposal, which goes out in February of next year. But the car sharing in itself, I mean, there is a number of really important things about that. Electrification of corporate fleets and government and council fleets actually increases dramatically the uptake of second-hand electric vehicles within the country. And that's really important that we lead on it. I don't even think it's leading, just a reasonably fast approach to it. And 60%, I think, of our fossil fuel usage in the city is at the moment in the transport fleet. So if we're even going to meet the very modest targets that the government is going to set in Paris, we have to address the transport industry. There is no other way of doing it. So the joy of car sharing is that you actually just pay for the vehicle as you use it. We all own vehicles but use them, but leave them in the garages for a vast array of time. We all have electric vehicle charging stations in our garages. So there's 1.5 million of them in the country. We will probably need about 5 in and around the central city, in and around the city as a whole, to overcome what electric vehicle owners have, which is a thing called range anxiety, that they're going to run out of places that they can travel to that don't have car sharing, that don't have charging stations. The staff did with ICA a stunning presentation on to hotels and businesses and malls on putting outdoor charging stations in those, and there has already been some uptake of those from at least one of the hotels that I'm aware of. There are private people who want to come in and put charging stations into the city. They're prepared to fund them. So there is an enormous amount happening in this area. I suspect what will happen in Christchurch is that we will do this shared fleet, and part of that will result in a proposal which has car sharing for the public as part of it, and that will lead, both of those will have a very clear pathway to major electrification of the fleet. The joy of car sharing is if you need a car to go skiing, you can share that car. If you need a car because you're shifting houses, so many of us are, you can just use that car or that vehicle for the weekend. You don't have to actually own all those vehicles, and you don't have to pay for the cost of storing them all of the time. I think it's something that will be incredibly exciting, and the work that staff are doing on electric vehicle car sharing will I suspect, lead to two major outcomes. One, a major saving for the council, and two, a major increase in the uptake of electric vehicles, which eventually we pass on and which increases the uptake of electric vehicles across the whole city, which is exciting.
Paul?
Yeah,
Ali?
I agree, Vicky, but one thing that's not really clear in the report is it talks about the long-term plan implications. When we come to replace vehicles, we've only budgeted for $16,000 or $17,000, but if we're fleet sharing, the cost of electric vehicles, which is obviously $32,000 to $40,000, will be reduced because we won't have to buy as many cars because we'll be sharing the fleet.
Yes, but Kevin knows way more about that than...
I just don't think it comes across in the report. Yeah. It's sort of shown as a negative rather than actually a positive, which it should be.
No, good question. So depending on the business case later in the year, it might mean that council goes to market for the supply of vehicles. So we may not, depending on business case and council decision, actually own the vehicles. So they could be... So you're dead right. If we were looking at electrification, it would take years to change it, our current fleet, which we own. But the new model might be a cheaper model to go to market.
Can I just ask another question on that? So we have our vehicle fleet sitting in a car park, and the car parks cost us a huge amount of money. We could, in actual fact, after the hours of use, we could actually have those fleets available for public use.
Yes. Or staff use as well.
Staff use?
Actually, they take them home and charge them.
Which would negate the necessity for as much parking as we have.
Exactly, and that's a real benefit for the city, and as Councillor Vicky Buck was saying, potential electrification as well.
Yep. Ali?
Page 42, 5.28, source of funding, reprioritisation of the 2015-16 Strategic Policy and Planning Activity Work Programme. What does that mean, and where will the money come from, leaving something else unfunded? Or I just wanted a bit more information around that, please.
So, sorry, was that in regards to the shared fleet project?
That's with regards to the electrical. It's under option 1 preferred, develop a policy framework for electric vehicles and car sharing.
Car sharing.
So it's the car sharing component of it.
Just point out the
5.28, page
5.28
42.
source of funding, reprioritisation of the 2015-16 Strategic Policy and Planning Activity Work Programme. That's for the policy work.
Yes,
so
what
within,
I'm seeing there is, well, I'm guessing it relates to the $12,000.
Well, within strategy and finance, they have a variety of work on their program. Right. We reprioritise that work so that this work gets done.
Yes, my question is what's been dropped.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
sorry.
Does it matter?
Yeah, of course
well,
it does.
It does.
Oh.
Well, I'd just like a bit more detail on it, that's all.
So the Mayor's right, it's simply to do with staff time and in terms of us needing to reprioritise. I don't think we've got any plans to drop anything just at the moment. It's more a matter of pushing some stuff back and perhaps elevating this if council wants this to be a priority for us. So it's this kind of constant juggling act that we go through in terms of our work program to kind of meet the demands that come through council.
Okay, that's, as long as I can be confident that it's not, you know, key work or, you know, other stuff.
Something that we really want done.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key.
But there are a few things that we would have liked to have started, but probably haven't at this stage. So I think we'll have to see how much legs this gets in terms of the, you know, how much resource we have to throw in it, and then we still need to have a discussion with you about our work program.
Yep.
So you know, at that stage we'll go, well, this is the implications of us continuing to spend a lot of time on this. Other things may have to fall by the wayside, but that's a discussion we still need to have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Yanni?
Yeah, I just had two questions. One was the council would have a process on an annual basis where we'd sign off on the strategy, policy and planning work program. Is that coming to us? And if so, when?
Yes, we're looking to get a briefing time for you as soon as we can, so we're hoping that that'll be imminent.
Okay, so
and then there'll be a report to council after that.
Yeah.
So briefing first, report to council.
So I think that's the opportunity to work out what's happening. That's good, thank you. And then this council kind of led the way in New Zealand, I think, for electric buses, but buses have kind of been dropped off. Has there been any discussion around, you know, actually the greatest shared vehicle, which is probably a bus full of passengers? So I'd really like us to do some work on that. How do we get work progressing on that?
Well, don't we have to don't we have to get the regulator to insist on electric buses? I mean, it's an ECAN.
There's issues with the size of the electric buses and the weight of them on our bridges, but we're looking at, I think there's some new ones being developed overseas, am I right?
It's
much smaller ones, and actually, given the number of people that I see on the bus, they may not be a bad idea.
Exactly.
I mean, we didn't have to wait for the regulators to have our yellow shuttles going around the central city.
Yeah, but we paid for that.
Yeah.
We could do.
We could trial one, and I was thinking about that on the way to work this morning after having looked at this, thinking we could actually go ahead and trial an electric bus, the smaller size, and see what that delivers. But I wouldn't want it just to be around the CBD. No, I'd actually want us to trial a much more effective and efficient service to the city.
So I was really keen for us to kind of learn the lessons of the yellow shuttles, because they were really good in terms of branding and image. Probably the electric stuff, there were some lessons learned about the technology at the time, but it is quite an interesting case study, and then that should hopefully look at what we could do going forward, but I'd just like us to try and progress that. Is this the right place, or is it part of that working party?
Certainly those discussions are ongoing as part of the Public Transport Working Group, and there was a bit of a work on for ECAN and NZTA to come back to that group with some information, but as Councillor Cotter mentioned, there are some issues in terms of the weight, size, technology, but technology certainly advanced quite a bit since a few years ago. But
and that's why we can't get the yellow ones out again, isn't it? They're a bit past it.
We've
been told, because we wanted to get them out.
But it's going to be, like everything's going to increase exponentially, very quickly. It's just, I don't know whether people kind of really realise just how how quickly things are going to change, and we need to be. I mean, we've got the ideal opportunity. We're rebuilding our city. We've got the opportunity to be a world leader in this regard, and to be at the front end, not for. I mean, the thing is people worry that it's going to cost more, but it's actually going to cost more if we don't actually change the way we do things. Fundamentally change the way we do things. Anyway.
So I mean, I support. We're not in debate, are we? We're just questions. So anyway, so no resolutions now around the buses. Just there's work going on with others, and probably as part of that work program, we can raise it as an issue that we want.
Well, this is the. Well, could we put a request for proposals around electric a pilot electric bus pilot? So just even if we could have a phrase in there that indicates that we're keen for staff to develop, some work around a pilot electric bus option for Christchurch would be good.
Do you think the word shuttle might be a better word rather than bus?
No, not this bus. Just on one route, perhaps, or something like that. Just a.
Yep.
Just one comment. With the Energy Action Plan that you've adopted, and part of the discussions with the working group, it's looking at electrification of vehicles from organisations, so we can put it in under there.
Okay.
And with ECA, we work very closely with them. So when there's a pilot potential, and when the price is right and the timing's right to trial, we can work with ECA around that.
Okay.
But we've got it covered under here. If you can.
So we don't need to write a specific reference into this resolution?
I don't believe so at the moment, but with the working party we will discuss that and how we can have an action plan.
How about we discuss it with the working group and then bring something back?
Okay, and you promise that you will?
There's no danger.
I know there's a high risk of leaving it to Vicky because she's just not interested in the subject. Sorry, that was facetious for anyone who's reporting. Right, okay, so this is moved by Pauline, seconded by Vicky, and is there any discussion? Yanni.
Yeah, thank you. Just to be brief, I really support us doing this work. As part of the LTP, we changed the activity management plan to ask staff to report at regular intervals around innovative transport solutions for our city, and I see this as kind of the first one of those. So thank you to the committee and the staff for the work that's been done on it. I just want to pick up on the point that we have the most amazing opportunity to do things completely differently because of the earthquake and because of the opportunities that presents, and it would be a real shame if we couldn't capture some of the progressive things that we've done previously, like those electric yellow shuttles, or looking at new technologies in cars around electrification, or even other technologies that are being developed. So I'm really supportive of this. I think it's great to see that the activity management plan levels of service that we've set are now sort of working their way through to getting the outcomes that we've expected. And thank you for those people that have been involved. I strongly support this.
Great, excellent.
And I'd just say that this is the beginning of something. It's amazing. So it's about providing the guidance for our requirements for this and for the long-term sustainability of our city. And, it is happening around the world and other places, but it's going to be challenging because we have a small population. But as I say, it's part of the modal change. We've got to get in behind this. And it's a chicken and an egg thing. If we start it, people will jump on and join it. So it sounds a little bit out there at the moment, particularly because we are so wedded to our own cars, and I don't think I'd like anyone sharing mine actually, but anyway, that's another barrier. But it really is a beginning point, and I think Christchurch, we should be proud that we are leading the way in these sustainable initiatives. And staff have done a huge amount of work on it, especially Nick here, we're lucky to have you. So I certainly support this.
Paul.
Just quickly, I think that by doing this work now, I think the exponential change is coming, and it's going to be here before we even know it. And if we don't start this work now, we are going to be behind the eight ball. So I think getting in behind it, and there's creative ways we can move people around. We talk about the university not being the centre of our city. Doesn't actually necessarily need to be. We need our students living in the city. Now, if we have our students living in the city, we need a shuttle or a bus service that goes backwards and forwards on a regular basis and is sustainable. That moves people around where they want to go to quickly. And I think this is a real good start, so I'm really supportive of it.
Yep. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. And then to the shared fleet options and proposal. Again, Pauline, you'd like to move that, and Vicky, you'd like to second it.
But we've kind of covered most of that off really in our conversations. Once again, it is the council leading this, but it's also we're agreeing that we support ECA to manage and facilitate this. So ECA is being incredibly supportive in these initiatives for us. So I don't know if there's much more to be really said about this, Vicky. We've kind of covered most of it off, haven't we?
Yep.
Have you got anything to add? Yeah.
Let's get on with it.
Yeah, let's get on with it, yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just, I just think that this is absolutely the way of the future. The idea that every single government department, every single council, every single, sort of agency that provides service has to have their own fleet of cars is just, it's historic now, it's out of date, and we've actually got to lead the way. So I'm really supportive of this. I think it could not only project incredible savings for government and local government, but actually could start to change people's perceptions of using cars and move to that electrification that will make a difference.
That's
so,
right, and it's about
fantastic.
working on our partnering agencies and picking up more of them along the way, and once a few people get on board agencies, the more will come and the whole thing will grow and it'll just work. So
yep.
Yeah.
Good. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried. Cooking on gas. What's the next one? The tidal barrier pre-feasibility study. Keep my mouth shut. Right.
So as you recall, we were waiting on the reports from the comments from the agencies that you wrote a letter to, Leanne and particularly Ngāi Tahu, who had some definite concerns about it, particularly relating to the interpretation of the Treaty of Waitangi in the report. And also in the financial side of it, before the report was done, there was perhaps a misconception that the existing stock banks would no longer be required, and from the report it's been revealed that that's not the case. So that makes a very big difference financially to the viability of a tidal barrier, which is in the millions and millions of dollars to build it. So that has made a big difference in the viability. So the recommendation that we've come to is that we not proceed to a full feasibility study at this stage under the Land Drainage Recovery Programme. We've also put a note there at the end, because we had a deputation from the South Shore Residents Association just noting that the bird habitats are going to be threatened by sea level rise. I'd actually like to amend the wording of 5.2 if I may. It hasn't sort of reflected it very well in my view.
Yeah.
So could I just have it read that it note the feedback from the South Shore Residents Association of the potential threat to bird habitat and feeding areas posed by sea level rise. That's all we need.
I was a little confused by this. I mean, I'm going to take people's questions, but I was confused by this because the staff recommendation talked about the information being considered as one of the engineering options for flood protection.
Can I just foreshadow an amendment, please?
Yeah.
I'd like to actually move the staff recommendation.
Right, okay. Well, that's good. So, right, but I also wanted to kind of clarify as to why the committee didn't, I mean, I can understand them not agreeing with 4.2, but I can't understand why 4.3 is not included in the committee recommendation.
Well, the reason we didn't include that, Leanne, was because the report was about the continuing on with a full feasibility study.
No.
And
4.3.
4.3 could go.
No, I know, that's the recommendation. We
4.3 is different. It says to continue to work closely with Sarah on the options for floodplain management as part of the technical work on the future use of the residential red zone. I want to know why that is not included in the recommendation from the committee.
I think it's probably an oversight, and it could easily go in there, and the issue with the committee was that it just wanted to get rid of the concept of the tidal barrier.
Yes, so that was the intention, you're right. So I guess...
So 4.3 could be moved in as 5.3?
Yeah. It was really 4.2 that...
I think it was interpreted as kind of going truck and trailer with the tidal barrier, so they were a bit reticent about including that as well.
No.
I had a different view to that, actually.
Yeah.
I thought we did need to, well, we had to look at.
Yeah.
Looking at all the options is fine. Yes.
So,
We were concentrating on the tidal barrier.
Yeah.
and actually it should be the other way around. So 5.2 should become 5.3.
Yeah.
So, so swap them around. That's right. Why are you noting just the feedback from the South Shore Residents Association when we had feedback from the Estuary Trust?
Because it was a different angle. It was just noting that the sea level rise was going to threaten bird feeding and habitats and bird feeding areas. That's all. Simply, the other ones were more in relation to the actual barrier. And we could note all of the feedback if you want to. I'm not
I just think that it might be better.
The other ones were more about the infrastructure and the, the amenity, the costings, all those things that actually in the technical report. That's all.
Yeah, it wasn't just that. Wasn't my reading of it, not the Estuary
I'm
Trust.
happy to put a note other things if you want to. That's good. Yeah. Because when people come,
might be just to put 5.1 and you're now 5.2, which are the same as the staff recommendation, and then just take
take 5.3
as amendment.
I voted against that inclusion of that original 5.2 in the committee recommendation, principally on the point that we are noting feedback about the potential loss of the bird feeding area and providing some protection, and yet we are, as a council, are not prepared to offer our community any form of mitigation from flooding, land, coastal erosion or anything in that area, and yet we are quite happy to offer protection for bird breeding areas.
It doesn't
so
say
that was my
that,
reason
Dave.
for voting against that.
I understand that. I'm going to put it separately, but it's simply noting the view of the South Shore Residents Association. So that's fine.
It shouldn't be part of a motion then. It should be a note to
it's
the.
A note. It's supposed to be a note, not a.
It is a note
to the resolution, not part of the resolution.
And that's fine. We'll put it separately. It is a noting provision. But my view is that if we're going to note that, we actually should note the others, because there was more feedback than the South Shore Residents Association, and I think that if we're going to vote against the staff recommendation that the information in the pre-feasibility report on a tidal barrier be considered as one of the engineering options for flood protection and the development of the Council's 3 water strategy, then I want us to say that we had feedback from a large number of organisations. So we had feedback from ECAN, which didn't express a view because it's the regulator. And because it's the regulator, it can't express a view, but it did express concerns about matters that they could be involved with helping us resolve. And I'm not reading between the lines, but I just feel that there wasn't the enthusiasm for it that I might have seen otherwise. It certainly wasn't supported by Ngāi Tahu. It wasn't supported by the 2 estuary trusts, associations that have been set up, and it wasn't supported by the South Shore Residents Association. So,
So do you want to note all those individually?
Well, I just think that we should be noting that we requested feedback from a range of organisations, and I don't know whether we should specifically say what each of them said, but if you do, then that we should say what each of them responded to.
So, are you suggesting perhaps we just remove the note around 5.3 to make things a lot easier?
Or we could say that it note that the feedback from a range of organisations that were invited to comment on the pre-feasibility study did not support the proceeding with any further feasibility work. But what I'm hearing from staff, and I'm reading this, and maybe we should get someone from staff to come and speak to this, is that, am I reading 4.1 and 2 together as saying that this shouldn't proceed as part of the land drainage recovery program, but that further work should be done in terms of the 3 water strategy? Because it says the information be considered as one of the engineering options. So maybe Helen.
certainly. The Three Waters strategy is a much broader document than a feasibility study of a particular engineering solution. So the Three Waters strategy is looking at wastewater, potable water and stormwater, and we have specifically expanded the stormwater, surface water aspects of that to look at floodplain management, including river and tidal flood protection in the Lower Avon and the Heathcote. So the strategy will look at those sort of options in a broad sense, but it would not take the step of then going to engineering feasibility.
Okay, so
So
I'm just unclear as to why the information in the pre-feasibility report on a tidal barrier be considered as one of the engineering options for flood protection, the development of the Council's Three Water strategy. Does that mean that we could then subsequently get a report saying we want to go ahead with a feasibility study on the tidal barrier? Because I think you're getting from Council that we're not interested in going down that track.
Which is why we took it in.
I read it as retaining the information to be put up against other. Why would we spend a vast amount of money on a pre-feasibility study and then just throw it away altogether? It should be used to compare, stack up against other options. But in 4.1 we are saying that we are not going to proceed with a full feasibility study.
Yeah, but that's
we
under
should
the
retain
land drainage
information that we've already done in our follow-up assessment.
So the information collated in the pre-feasibility report be made available for flood protection work and the development of the Council's Three Waters strategy. I mean, what I'm trying to say is that we're not interested in a tidal barrier, and I don't think Sarah's interested either after having looked at the pre-feasibility.
To be honest, the recommendation is perhaps entirely redundant because the Three Waters strategy will consider all of the information that we have available and would certainly not would certainly not deliberately ignore it.
Okay,
right.
so a full feasibility study on a tidal barrier does not proceed at this stage under the Land Drainage Recovery Program. And maybe we should just put at the end of that, noting that the feedback from a range of organisations did not support the tidal barrier. And then we've got it noted that we sought feedback and the feedback was pretty crystal clear.
Still doesn't satisfy 4.2.
So go up to 5.1 and move a full feasibility study on a tidal. So go, and then just go comma at the end of land drainage noting that feedback from a range of organisations did not support a full feasibility study, because that's included in the report. That it continue to work closely with Sarah on the options for floodplain management as part of the technical work on the future use of the residential red zone. And the question is do we need 5.3 on that basis?
No, look, I'm happy to take it out. You've noted the feedback from the organisations.
Yep.
We've had a discussion about it anyway, and it was interesting that they brought it up at in their feedback.
Okay. So, so you're happy to move that, and are you happy to second that on that basis?
No, because we're still not retaining or using any of the information.
Yes, we are. We've just heard that from staff.
Where? It doesn't say in the remit, though, in the resolution.
Okay, so...
I'm happy to second it.
Okay, and but can we put in some words that just, you know, because I'm trying to find a way through this, that because people, the information is going to be used, but we're not going to...
It doesn't say that, it does in 4.2.
Yes, I know.
Just do a report and tear it up. I mean, it's done,
Yeah.
it's there. You know, to access it. And after, so a new 5.3 saying
note that staff will utilise all of the information that was provided in the pre-feasibility study in developing the 3-water strategy. Does that work?
I think David just wanted that made explicit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be happy with
Yeah,
that.
we're not going to let the information go.
I just need it recorded that way.
Yeah. But it was interesting because, as you might recall, the ECAN came to the long-term plan hearings and said that they hadn't been included at the outset of any discussion on whether there should be a tidal barrier in the first place. And the reason was that it was driven off the a skirt project within, authorised by Sarah, basically. So it hadn't come to council before the pre-feasibility work was done. But you're quite right, we wouldn't want to waste the information that has been obtained. All right, Yanni.
Yeah, I struggle with this resolution in that we're not the ones making this decision, as has just been pointed out. This is HIG, this is Sarah, NZTA and Council, but it's not. It's a horizontal infrastructure governance group that's responsible for the tidal barrier, the study. So shouldn't we be directing them so that it's really clear? Because what I worry about is that they'll just go away and do it anyway. So as is the start of this process. So I just wanted to check whether we need a resolution that makes it really clear that we don't want that group progressing it.
Dave.
The HIC considered the report yesterday and basically have passed exactly the resolution or similar resolution to what Council's passed today. So there's a total alignment there between Council and the horizontal infrastructure governance group. It doesn't exclude, obviously, if any one of those parties, however, taking that information, doing whatever they wish with it. It is public domain information.
So how much has this cost to date?
Sorry?
How much has this process cost to date?
I'd have to go and pull out a piece of information.
Oh, okay.
That has been given to us previously.
Yeah, I think it's a few hundred thousand. But the other question I had was whether there'd been any community board feedback, and if so, what it was. There is a brief reference in 3.3 that was presented to the Hagley-Ferrymead Community Board. I don't know about Burwood Pegasus.
I'm sorry, I wasn't at that, but I can certainly get the staff to pull out the minutes of that meeting and bring it back to council, but it have been gone.
Okay, and can I just clarify then that 5.1, so if we don't want a tidal barrier to go ahead for all sorts of reasons, do we vote for 5.1 or does 5.1 just put it into another process for consideration? Because I'd like today to actually vote against going ahead with a tidal barrage based on the information we've got and the concern from the community.
It does, if I may, leave it open to another time in the process, obviously, in the wording at this stage and then under that program. So I can see what Yanni's getting at. The door is still open.
The subsequent council could overturn this.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, if the the thing is that the technology changes all the time. I mean, I'm not in favour of a tidal barrier. I think it's it's the wrong idea. I think it's willing nature to do something that it will completely ignore. And I just think that there are too many environmental risks to the estuary, to the city. It creates a false sense of security. There are a whole lot of reasons that I could give as to why I don't personally think that we should proceed with a tidal barrier. But we actually haven't had a feasibility study on it prepared. We've had a pre-feasibility study, and that says to me that we do not proceed to a full feasibility study, and that's what we're voting on today.
So let's just make that clear in 5.1.
It is.
Sort of, we're just taking it out of one program and we're leaving it open for others.
6 months' time.
So
anyway. We
what
can come
other
back and
program
change the whole thing.
What other program will it go into?
HIG, skirt optimisation, a number of programs.
We had to fit this much into the skirt optimisation and main budget.
Yeah.
So
that's another problem that we've got. So,
show the benefits, if there were any benefits, we're going to come into play for 50 years, really, and so that's why it's pulled out of this program, which we are addressing the issues. The horizontal infrastructure group have only got a very small amount of money left, and they're really dealing with in the land drainage area, repairing broken stormwater pipes almost. That's sort of the basic. There's not the what do you call it, the flood banks and things like that, which is part of that residential red zone. We've got to look at that whole picture. What is the best solution? Is retreat the best? You know, that everything's up in the air for that second part of that solution. But basically, this does. It stops the work that we're doing. We've got a certain commitment. We've got, you know, sort of 200,000 around the land drainage program in our long-term plan. But there's no money really sitting to do any other flood work at this point in time in the horizontal infrastructure going through. But the report clearly showed that, you know, if you built it today, it would be open, would it be used twice a year or once a year? I can't remember.
You know, like, I don't need to be convinced of the merits. What I'm concerned about.
Look, take out the words land drainage recovery program. I just want to get on with it. A full feasibility study does not proceed at this stage.
Does not proceed. Noting feedback from a range of organisations that did not support a full feasibility study.
Yep.
Fine.
Yep.
That would be good.
Right. Right, I shall put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you. Right.